Once upon a time, Wilma Lanham and Richard Harvey simply complete each other.
She was a little bit more outgoing. He was a little quieter. They just hit it off. He loved her, and she loved him. Well, what else do you need?
But their perfect union comes under savage attack.
It must have been the most horrific discovery that anyone could possibly make. It was just a gruesome scene.
All I could see is from the knees down.
The person in white certainly is someone that needs to be interviewed.
You just can't grasp it.
For this couple, the honeymoon is over. The weather report calls for clouds on this day in Virginia Beach, Virginia. So the sudden beam of sunlight seems a blessing from above as it streams through a skylight and spotlights new bride, Wilma Lanham.
We have come together at the invitation of Wilma and Richard.
She saw the sunlight come on through. I'm sure to her that just meant that everything was going to be perfect.
The 35-year-old vivacious high school music teacher has always worn her heart on her sleeve.
Richard?
She was crying. There were some tears. But it was tears of happiness. She was very emotional.
We love her, cover her, honor.
35-year-old Richard Harvey is a laid-back restaurant manager and loving dad of 3 young kids.
I will.
She was marrying a man that had children, and she was ready to make that commitment to be a mother.
Will you have Richard to be your wedded husband?
After a few failed marriages, he's happy to be finally getting it right.
A nice-looking man with a nice job. And he said he loved her, and she loved him. Well, what else do you need?
The newlyweds exchange vows in a simple ceremony shared with close friends and family, the people they draw strength from.
Wilma was not a big show person, and I admire her for it. I think all these big, showy, ostentatious weddings that people have don't do anything about the love that's in your heart.
Richard and Wilma, I now pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss the bride. Hey, everybody, they're going to cut the cake.
Everyone pitches in to make it a day full of love, personal touches. The groom's best friend is the caterer, and Wilma's mom bakes the wedding cake.
I think the wedding was a happy moment for everyone there, because it's what she had always wanted. You just hope and pray that everything is going to work out for them.
But it seems those prayers may have gone unanswered. 10 months after their blissful day, Wilma fails to show up for her job at a local high school. It's strange. The devoted music teacher has never been late for work, even once.
But when you got somebody that's dedicated, they're there all the time. If they're going to be late, they call.
Have you seen Wilma?
And when that person doesn't show up, you automatically, alarms start going off.
I want you to call the house, see if anybody's there.
Yes, ma'am.
And I need you to call a substitute teacher.
Yes, ma'am.
School administrators try her at the couple's home,
No answer.
but get no answer. Concerned, they reach out to the contact on file, her cousin Deanna.
Hello, Deanna. They knew that if anybody would know where she was, that I would. And I said, no. I said, I haven't talked to her. Okay, thank you very much.
The assistant principal decides to go check Wilma's house. Something just feels wrong.
Wilma would not just be AWOL. She wouldn't do that.
Make sure I get that teacher in there.
Has something happened to the vibrant music teacher? Music has always been in her life, ever since she grew up with 2 siblings in the coal mining region of West Virginia.
She was in the 2nd grade, and she came home from school and said, Mommy, I want to take piano lessons. You didn't have to say, Wilma, it's time to practice. You need to practice. She was always at the piano. Her voice was just pitched to perfection. And her vibrato, I mean, it just flowed like a stream. And she was wonderful.
After graduating college with a master's in music, she moves to Virginia and lands her dream job at a high school in Norfolk.
Wilma definitely wanted others to be able to appreciate music like she did. And so that's why she wanted to be a music teacher.
Her passion for music is so strong, she demands the most from her students.
Knock it off!
No one's just skating through this class.
Do you think this is appropriate in my classroom?
Wilma was a petite dynamo. She wasn't afraid to stand up to students that were head and shoulders above her.
Am I making myself clear?
She would not abide anything less than what she thought was the best her students could produce.
Even though she's found joy in her work, she yearns for children of her own. But sadly, that dream is unlikely to ever come true.
She'd had problems from the beginning of puberty. We took her to the doctors, and she was tested and things, gave her medication, but they said she probably wouldn't have children.
For many, many women, becoming a mother is a very important part of their identity. Wilma really longed to be a mother, even though physically she was unable to give birth to a child.
Still, she holds on to the dream of getting married.
When we were little girls, we had Barbies with bridal dresses. And of course, we all felt that someday we would be the Barbie in the bridal dress. And I think it was very important to Wilma to be married.
But she has trouble finding Mr. Right. As she enters her mid-30s, she worries she may never find her soulmate.
Back then, if you weren't getting married shortly after high school, well then people start thinking, oh, you're an old maid. You're just going to be an old maid school teacher.
She hopes they're wrong, and the man for her is out there, somewhere. Although she doesn't know him yet, Richard Harvey is born and raised right there in Norfolk. A guy's guy, his passion is sports, in which he excels.
He played all the sports, baseball, football, all the various different sports. He was very athletic.
He gets a degree in phys ed and starts teaching gym class. It's a fun job, but it doesn't quite pay the bills.
He had got out of teaching because of all of the difference in pay of what he really wanted to have in his life, and so therefore he went into the restaurant business.
There he finds his calling and quickly moves up the corporate ladder.
Cooperation makes it happen, people.
He's a natural leader who can handle the stress of a kitchen. Handsome and funny, the girls like him. But when it comes to choosing the right one, he keeps striking out.
He had been married 3 times before, and he had been divorced 3 times, and he had 3 children.
The hard-working father of 3 has learned his lesson not to rush into marriage.
You need to check on your table.
He hopes now that he's matured, he'll find a woman he can settle down with for good.
Richard had some bad luck in choosing mates.
Keep up the good work.
He still had this optimism that he could find the perfect wife.
Then one day, Wilma's having lunch with her cousin when she catches the eye of the hunky restaurant manager. She has this lovely spark about her, so he can't help but strike up a conversation.
How are you?
There seemed to be an instant attraction between Richard and Wilma.
I actually teach music at the local school.
I used to teach.
Really? What did
Yeah,
you teach?
we should perhaps get together sometime.
That would be great. I can give you my number.
Yes.
She'll take the handsome manager to go, please.
They automatically just seemed to click off. They just started dating right away.
And at night they sometimes have a telescope.
They had some background together, and she talked about how that they could just sit down and talk about many things.
Cheers.
They just hit it off. Maybe it's because he had been a teacher before, and she enjoyed sports. Wilma was just really intrigued with him. She was a little bit more outgoing than what he was. He was a little quieter, but I think that probably complimented the two of them.
After just a few dates, both realize this is the one they've waited for. They see a bright future ahead. But is that future now in danger? Wilma's assistant principal arrives at the newlyweds' house.
She noticed that Wilma's car was still in the driveway, knocked on the door, but there was no answer.
Are you home?
And apparently she walked around the house, and all the shutters, curtains were drawn, and the house appeared to be locked up.
Wilma!
Hello, can I help you?
Yes, I'm an assistant principal at the school that Wilma teaches at. And we have
She talks to the next-door neighbor, a Virginia Beach police officer. But he hasn't seen either Wilma or Richard recently. He says Richard should be at work and calls the office.
Hello? Is Richard working today?
But the new groom isn't there.
Can you imagine? After this amazing wedding, this embarking on a new life, the very responsible bride doesn't show up at work, and then the husband is MIA himself.
The quiet, simple lives of two modest people, a teacher and a restaurant manager, are about to become front-page news in the most horrifying way. The music stops when newlywed Wilma Harvey failed to show up for her teaching job. And no one has been able to reach her husband, Richard.
They didn't know where Richard was. They couldn't find him. They didn't know where Wilma was, and they couldn't find her. So the concern grew that something was terribly wrong.
After Wilma's assistant principal leaves, the newlywed's neighbor gets a call back from Richard's work.
Hello?
The caller is Richard's brother-in-law, who works in the same office.
And the brother-in-law said, well, her husband's out of town right now on business, but I'll try to get a hold of him and find out what we can.
The brother-in-law also says he'll call Richard's parents, since Wilma's family lives out of state.
The brother-in-law tells the parents what's going on and asks the parents to respond to Wilma's house.
I don't like it. Wilma would never miss school.
Everyone's worried. But maybe Wilma's just sick, and Richard's busy and can't be reached. They hope their gut feeling is wrong, and everything's okay with this pair, who just a year before were orchestrating a romantic new duet. They spent a lot of time hanging out with their inner circle of friends, including Wilma's dear cousin, Deanna Barney, and Richard's longtime best friend, David Pruitt. Everyone can see how perfect they are for each other.
Oh, I could tell from the very beginning that, they were falling in love. They wanted to be together all the time.
Things we have all. We owe it all to her.
Wilma quickly bonds with Richard's kids from his previous marriages.
The children definitely liked Wilma. They thought a lot of her, and she thought a lot of them.
For Wilma, it's literally a dream come true.
She could not have kids, but she wanted to have a family. She thought she was meant to have a family. She was meant to be a mother.
And Richard, I'm sure, was so attracted by this. I mean, when you have a woman falling in love with your kids and you're witnessing it, it's like, could it have been more perfect?
As their love blossoms, the couple sees less of their friends. For Richard, it means no more late-night poker games with his buddies. And for Wilma, fewer girls' nights with her cousin, co-workers, and friends.
When couples begin their love relationship, it's very important that they cocoon. And in fact, they're going to create a me and you against the world kind of emotional bond.
After a few months, they decide to live together. Wilma moves in, hoping the next steps they take together will be down the aisle.
Aw, that's our goal in life. To marry, to have a spouse, to raise a family. It was very, very important to Wilma.
But that marriage proposal doesn't come.
She had made the commitment, but she was fully willing to walk if he was not going to step up and make that commitment back.
After 6 months, Wilma tires of waiting.
Wilma basically ready to ride out. I'm taking care of your children. I'm getting along with ex-wives, and if this is going to continue, I want more than just being a living person.
Please just stay. I don't want you to go.
The relationship was not going into marriage, and that's what she desired, not just to live with somebody, so she moved out.
Right away, Richard sees his mistake. He's lost without her.
Richard realized that this was what he wanted. He made the decision to come back and say, well, let's go ahead and get married.
Wilma, I'm here because I think I made a bad mistake.
The decision is not a typical proposal. No taking of a knee, no sparkly ring. Just a mutual decision to pledge their love to each other
I'm
forever.
here because I want to say that I should have never let you leave. And I want you to be with me, okay? I love you. Wilma, will you marry me?
Do you mean it?
Yes, I mean it.
Yes. Yes. Of course. Yes.
Which is all she ever wanted anyway. But now, no one can find either one of the lovers.
Wilma! Wilma!
Letting themselves in with a spare key, Richard's parents check the house with Richard's brother-in-law and the couple's neighbor.
They go in the house. They're calling out for Wilma. And they just become extremely concerned.
Then, in the master bedroom,
Are you in
they
here?
finally find Wilma.
It must have been the most horrific discovery that anyone could possibly make. She was on the bed. She was naked. Her hands were behind her back, tied. There was blood everywhere. It was just a gruesome scene.
She's clearly dead.
Don't come in here!
The brother-in-law begs the others not to look. They call police. Then, the rest of the family.
If someone dies in a car accident, that's very tragic. But for someone to be murdered in your family, it's just unheard of. You can't grasp it.
I initially got a call from Deanna, and she started telling me what happened. And first thing I said was, is where's Richard?
Where is Richard? Is it possible he has something to do with his bride's gruesome murder? Or is he the second victim?
Wilma.
10 months after Wilma and Richard Harvey's simple wedding, Wilma is found slain in the couple's home the day before Valentine's Day. She was tied up, then viciously slaughtered.
It's a horrible way to die. I mean, there were more than 20 stab wounds. Wilma did not go without a fight. She has defensive wounds to her forearms. She has a defensive wound to one of her hands where she tried to grab the knife blade.
Who could have killed this happy newlywed in such a gruesome way? As detectives search for clues, they discover no sign of forced entry.
You're immediately starting to think that it must be someone that either is related to the victim or is a friend of the victim and had access to the house.
An hour after the body's discovery, Richard's brother-in-law tells police he's finally spoken with the new groom, who's headed back from a business trip in Rhode Island. But is his trip just a cover story?
The spouse is almost always a prime suspect. You look at them first, and then you try to roll them out as quick as you can, or roll them in. The husband was nowhere in town at the time. Well, is he on the run? Did he do it? We just don't know at this point.
While they await his return, detectives question the rest of the family and friends.
I'm Deanna, her cousin.
Yeah. You know of anybody that might have a reason to do anything like this?
She had some.
Wilma's cousin says she actually suspects one of Wilma's students.
He gave her some trouble. Mouthing off or something. I don't know.
Knock it off!
What?
Hey! What's going on? Come here. Do you think it's appropriate in my classroom? Wilma just didn't take any guff off of him. She had told me that she had backed some guys up against the wall at school and told them, now, you're not going to do this in my class.
She was not afraid to do that, even to large kids, much bigger than her. She was not afraid to stand up to them and demand respect.
Had Wilma's tough talk backfired on her?
It's hard to estimate teenagers. You know, they're like children's minds, but big, strong, adult-like bodies. Makes you wonder, could a teenager have done this?
I don't know.
Detectives need to question everyone in Wilma's classes to learn more. To solve the shocking murder, police must focus on every detail, no matter how slight. Just a year earlier, the details on Wilma's and Richard's minds were all about their wedding.
Read it.
They want a simple ceremony surrounded by family and friends.
I think this is the one.
I like it.
Now,
Their wedding cake will be a one-of-a-kind masterpiece, baked with a mother's loving touch.
Wilma wanted her mother to do the cake. It was her special cake for her special day. One that nobody else would have anything like it.
What do you think? I don't know.
As the wedding day draws near, the busy couple's schedules get even more jam-packed. Working, spending time with the kids, and planning a wedding isn't easy.
Hello.
Their friends pitch in, including Richard's best buddy of the past 10 years, David, who offers to provide the catering.
Since they had worked together and they needed somebody to cater the wedding, that they felt like that would be good for David to do.
It meant so much to have her mother bake her a wedding cake, and then to have Richard's buddy cater the whole thing. It was a bringing together of a supportive community for their marriage.
But now that same supportive community is devastated by the bride's horrifying death. The medical examiner concludes Wilma was likely killed the evening before she was found. She had been bound and raped. Tests revealed traces of semen, but the technology at the time would not allow an exact DNA match to a perpetrator. She died from multiple stab wounds and having her throat slashed.
Someone really had a lot of anger built up in them.
Detectives follow a trail of blood from the bedroom into the adjoining bathroom, where they find a pair of gym shorts soaked with blood. The autopsy showed Wilma's body was streaked with a mixture of water and blood, as if someone had tried to clean her up after the murder. Another strange detail is that despite the frenzied attack, Wilma's glasses are neatly in place, like someone put them on her afterwards.
Just so unusual. I mean, you just brutally murdered someone and you put the glasses back on.
The washing up and replacing the glasses, they're almost caring gestures after such a cold-blooded crime. Was the killer conflicted about what he'd done?
Who would care enough about Willa to want to clean her up some? There again, it just leads to someone that was close to her.
It also looks like the perpetrator was searching for valuables to steal.
The drawers were taken out, clothes were removed. Well, was it a robbery?
But the other signs point to a personal motive as well. Then, detectives find exactly what they need to narrow the field of suspects down to one: a fingerprint on the inside lens of Wilma's glasses.
The positioning of the fingerprint indicated that it was from someone who was placing the glasses on her face. They felt like if they could find out who left that fingerprint, that they knew who the killer was.
They need to run the fingerprint through the database. Will it be a match to the new groom?
There were all kinds of questions regarding his absence and the fact that she was there alone, a relative newlywed left alone.
Wilma's cousin recalls the last time she saw Wilma, 2 weeks before the murder. The new bride didn't seem herself, like she was unhappy about something.
What's going on with you?
I spent that night at the house. Her mood was very somber that night. There was something not right. I couldn't put my finger on it.
Had the newlywed's perfect love gone sour?
I felt like there was some tension there, but I really didn't know. And she didn't say anything to me.
Wilma took the reason for her dark mood to her grave. The theory that one of Wilma's students might have killed her seems so much less likely now. Whoever committed this heinous crime and left that fingerprint had rage well beyond the schoolroom spat. Soon a new witness will surface with a tantalizing story of who was in the house on the day of the slaying. 2 hours after discovering Wilma Harvey's body, Virginia Beach police detectives have still been unable to interview her new husband, Richard, because he's on his way back from Rhode Island. As they wait for his return, investigators canvass the couple's neighborhood. They find several witnesses who saw a green car outside the house that night. They also talk to the paper boy who stopped by the Harvey house to collect the night before the body was found.
Knocked on the door. She answered.
Hi there.
Hello, Mrs. Harvey.
She invited me into the foyer, which wasn't unusual.
Okay, I'll be right back with some.
That's when the paper boy saw she wasn't alone.
I happened to notice somebody sitting on a couch or a chair in the room. All I could see is from the knees down. You could see the white pants and the white shoes. Couldn't necessarily identify whether it was a man or a woman, just a person sitting there. She got a money box and paid me out of the money box, which was typical.
Is the mysterious person in white Wilma's killer?
The person in white certainly is someone that need to be interviewed and very well could be a possible suspect.
Then, 10 hours after the body was found, Richard Harvey finally returns, shell-shocked by the news. Detectives question him for hours.
Tell me again why you left Virginia Beach.
I went on a business trip.
The police had to sort out the timeline. Could he have killed her and then left town as a cover? Those are questions that they're bound to ask. They have to.
He explains he's been away for almost a week. He says he suspected something may have been wrong with Wilma the night before.
He said that he had made several attempts to call her from where he was on his business trip and got no answer.
But I couldn't reach her.
He couldn't be reached immediately because he was in a training seminar. As soon as he heard the news, he rushed home. Investigators need to run down his alibi. And there's something else they need to check.
Sir, I'm gonna take some fingerprints from you. Come on, stand up. Come on up here.
They know that the thumbprint on the glasses does not belong to Wilma. The next step is to get fingerprints from Wilma's husband and either put him in the frame or eliminate him from having touched those glasses.
The new groom can't believe he's now being treated as a suspect in his wife's brutal murder, when just 10 months earlier, he'd stood next to her, joyfully exchanging their marriage vows.
She was getting what she wanted. She wanted Richard. She wanted a family.
He'd chosen a bride who was very compatible, who was willing to be a happy stepmother to his kids. He'd finally gotten marriage right.
After the ceremony, they head out on a simple honeymoon. Just a couple of nights at a local hotel, but it's the perfect little romantic retreat for down-to-earth Wilma.
She didn't need to go to Hawaii. She could be happy in her own backyard. You know, that was Wilma.
The newlyweds buy a cute new house together, and Wilma happily nests. But now that home has become Wilma's death chamber, and her loving husband, a prime suspect. But when the fingerprint results come back, it's a stunning turn no one expected. The print on Wilma's glasses does not belong to Richard. Despite all their suspicions, this evidence proves he's completely innocent. It's a blow to the investigation, but a relief to Richard. In the midst of his shattering grief, he's had to endure the agony of being a suspect for nothing.
It must have been just awful for Wilma's husband to get off the airplane and then have to face questioning by the police.
All this happening the day before what was to be his first Valentine's Day as a newlywed.
Imagine what he felt like, his bride, the love of his life, the marriage he'd finally gotten right, to be murdered in such a brutal way.
It's so hard on Richard. And now police are back to square one. But soon they will get a match on that crucial fingerprint. And when they do, it will provide the answer to more than one unsolved murder. Virginia Beach police run a fingerprint found on the glasses of murdered newlywed Wilma Harvey through their database of convicted felons. And to their surprise, they get a match. Someone with a deeply troubled past, littered with drugs, gambling, and debt, convicted of embezzlement and attempted robbery. He'd even done prison time.
Thank you. You're welcome.
The man is none other than the new groom's best friend, David Pruitt, who had catered the reception.
David loved to gamble, and he lost repeatedly. And in one case, he was in over his head. He went to his place of employment. He stole, I believe, $6,000.
Richard had been one of the few people who always stuck by David. Over their decade of friendship, Richard always thought he saw goodness inside his troubled friend.
Even after David went to jail, Wilma's husband still was there to help him. Testified for him, got him out on bail, got him a job at the local restaurant where he was a manager.
But their friendship faded after Richard got married.
He was having to let go of his friendship with Richard that they had had through the years. She was taking his place in many respects, you would say.
Had David grown obsessively jealous of Wilma's time with Richard? Relatives recall Wilma had said she'd become uncomfortable around David. She even referred to him as that creep.
She was bothered by the fact that he was always bugging them for money because he was always in trouble because of his gambling debts or jobs that he couldn't keep.
Maybe that's why she seemed disturbed when her cousin last saw her. Police bring Pruitt in for questioning.
We need to ask you some questions about Wilma Harvey.
They tell him a green car like the one he drives was seen at the Harvey home the night of the murder. He admits he did go to the house that evening, but claims he had innocent intentions.
He had gone there to check on Wilma because he knew that Wilma's husband was out of town and he was trying to help out.
It's such a terrible thing. I'm really worried about Richard.
He swears he didn't hurt her, and she was alive when he left. Investigators confront him with the fingerprint evidence.
This is Wilma's glasses. Your thumbprint's on these glasses. Now I know how that got there.
That kind of took the air out of him right there. I think he knew the game was up, that there was no way he was going to talk his way out of it, so he pretty much admitted, I killed her.
Perhaps relieved after unburdening himself about Wilma, he stuns the cops by suddenly confessing another dark secret. Wilma Harvey isn't the only newlywed he's killed.
Pruitt announces, oh, by the way, there's something else I need to get off my chest. I killed a woman 10 years ago.
And then
He confesses to killing a young woman he worked with at a fast food restaurant a decade earlier.
He came there late at night while she was locking up, asked to be let in, said he needed to call someone to give him a ride, and she let him in.
He says his intention was to rob the store, but then the predator inside him took over. It's also eerily similar to Wilma's murder.
He bound her, and he gagged her, and cut her throat. I mean, it was just almost identical.
He hadn't raped her, but that woman had been recently married, just like Wilma. Her murder had gone unsolved until now. For Wilma's killing, police charge him with capital murder, rape, and robbery. When he goes on trial a year later, he mounts little defense. David admits he stopped by the house after work that night to check on Wilma, knowing her husband was away.
Are you sure you don't need anything? I mean, I don't mind helping you out with anything while Richard's gone.
She was busy ironing her students' choir stoles for an upcoming performance.
Stop by.
When the paperboy came by to collect, David saw where Wilma kept her money. And with his gambling problem, he always needed that.
David was desperate for cash. And when he knew that cash was in that metal box, I think that sparked something.
Here. Let's cover it?
yes.
Alright, I'll see you next time.
He made sure the paperboy didn't see his face.
It was kind of scary to think that you were there when that person was there, that you could have just as easily been a victim as well.
Let's cover it?
Yeah, thank you.
Alright, I'll see you next time.
Then Wilma announced she had to change for choir practice.
I'll see you later.
But David came up with an excuse to linger.
Can I use your bathroom?
Sure. You know where it is.
I'll see you later.
Alright.
He says that at that point, he decided, hey, I'm going to go have sex with this woman.
He can take her money and feed his sick desires. He had hidden a knife he brought with him under his clothes until now.
He's got a knife in his hand. He puts the knife to her throat, then tells her that he's going to have sex with her.
In his warped mind, it's sex, but in truth, it's brutal rape. He makes sure she can't fight back.
Wilma is there in a perfectly helpless position with a person she befriended on top of her with a knife at her throat.
At that point, I believe that she thought he was simply going to go downstairs and take the money and leave. But instead, he stabbed her and stabbed her and stabbed her 29 times around the throat. It was a vicious, vicious attack.
He then ransacked the house, looking for things to steal. Something in his subconscious made him go back to her.
He tries to clean her body up. Also put her glasses back on the bridge of her nose. And he then leaves the scene.
Cleaning her and replacing the glasses might have been some twisted attempt to make up for the horror he'd put this kind, gentle woman through. The crime scene that had puzzled investigators because it seemed both personal and robbery-driven now makes sense. But what does not come out at trial is why he would rape and murder his best friend's wife.
Richard and Wilma, I now pronounce you man and wife.
Some believe he was obsessed with Richard and jealous of the time he spent with Wilma once they married.
In his own little warped mind, he may have perceived Wilma was taking Richard away from him.
On February 24th, 1986, David Pruitt is convicted of robbery, rape, and capital murder. He is sentenced to death. In a separate trial, he's convicted of killing his newlywed co-worker. On December 16th, 1993, he is executed in the electric chair at the Greenville Correctional Center in Virginia.
It wasn't a big relief, like I thought I was gonna, jump up and down. No, I didn't. I just said, you'll never do it again. That was the way I felt. He was given soft justice. Real justice would have been getting him hacked up just like he did his victims. That's my opinion of justice.
Poor Richard never could have imagined a man he called friend could be capable of this.
We wish we could all have a crystal ball and look inside somebody's mind and heart, but sometimes in our best friends lies evil.
After Wilma's murder, Richard immersed himself in his church community. He finally found love again, but has never forgotten his vibrant Wilma. Nearly 30 years later, her absence is still deeply felt by all she touched. Her family, her friends, and the students she was so devoted to.
He took something that I could never replace, that I will never have again.
We were like sisters. And I just miss it. I don't know if there's anything I can say that I miss the most about Wilma. I think I miss everything about Wilma.